Hi, y'all's. Fourth little mini micro. It's not really that micro. They're like 20, 30-minute episodes, which is kind of how long I like to keep the regular podcast anyway. So, whatever. This is another Columbia Chronicles, chronicling Columbia. Where did we leave off last? I was talking about the first handful, maybe the first half of the first semester I was there, which was fall of 23, and sort of handling the discomforts and imposter syndrome, stuff like that. Something I didn't know I had until I took my first quiz in Arabic was test anxiety. I didn't even know that was a term until it was told to me. Here's why I never had it back in the day. Because I didn't give a damn about how I did in school. Again, high school, I was a tornado. It was terrible. My only job was get in trouble and don't do any assignments. And if they even ask you, look at them like they're insane. That was my go-to. That was the baseline was, you're wrong. You're an authority figure. I'm me. I know everything because I'm 14. So, and then the little time I spent at community college, I mean, my mind was on stand-up, like figuring that out, getting good at it. That was like, the first couple of years. So I didn't really give any emotional, intellectual energy to any of the testing, so I didn't have any anxiety. This still is very different. We had a quiz every other week in Arabic, and they're not major. I mean, they're not like major quizzes, 5, 10. I mean, it's like a page, 2 pages, not a lot. They counted for, 20% of the grade or 30. I don't know. I would freeze. I would feel the pit in my stomach. I'm just like, it felt like when I was starting comedy and I was going to open mics, and if it was like a busy open mic, or when I did my first bringer show or like a showcase for something, it was that level of like, oh my God, I can't remember my material, and like, that kind of stuff. I had that for almost insignificant quiz. I mean, it was just like, it would have done nothing had I not done great on, all 5 points of that. But I just knew that was going to be every other week. So, I got ready, I studied, and I sat down it was a Monday morning, and I looked at this piece of paper and I forgot everything I learned from the 3 or 4 weeks leading up to it. And I sat there and I stared at the first question, and it was like, the most basic grammar in Arabic question. And I couldn't think. All I could think about was how I can't think about it. And then once you start doing that, that's the only train of thought that you can continue down. You're like, well, how can I not know? I know. If I just stop thinking about how I don't know, then I'll know, because I know. But right now I don't know because I keep thinking I don't know, even though I know that I know. Oh my God. And I think I probably finished last, and it was a quick quiz. I mean, the professor was walking around going like, everyone should be done. And I'm looking down, I'm like on question 2 of 10. Oh man. It was embarrassing. And I think I got like a 3 out of 5 or like a 2.5 out of 5. I don't know. But I ended up leaving that class feeling completely powerless because I had this information in my head. I studied for it and I wanted to be ready. I knew I was ready, and then I blanked. I struggled to fill in whatever I could, and the moment class was over, I walked out and I started heading to sit somewhere and eat my packed lunch. And then the answers obviously started coming back, and I was like, oh, that was number 3. Oh, this was number 5. And I knew I had a problem. I knew I had something that wasn't just going to go away by the next quiz. And then, midterms are going to come up, and then final exams. And I really didn't know how to conquer this. And I just thought, well, there's only probably one way. Just keep taking more quizzes, like ask maybe for extra time. I started looking up tips and tricks for test anxiety and that kind of stuff. And it turns out Columbia has a what do you call it? Like it's inside of the the disability services thing, where if you have I forget what they call it, but if you have special requirements in any way that require you to take a test in a different location, or it takes you longer for various reasons, I think severe test anxiety may fall under that. And I honestly didn't want to do it because I knew I could get past it, and it wasn't crippling severe. It was just it was the first quiz I had taken, the first test or whatever, in 2 decades, and showcases for comedy clubs and TVs and whatever are kind of like tests, but they're not. There's a level of anxiety and just nerves and stuff that I've learned how to deal with over the years for that. I don't even really think about that stuff anymore. Certain unique environments, maybe first time I performed for over 1,000, 2,000 people or something, I felt a little nervous. And then you have to go out cold, no intro music, no intro anything. You just walk out and you got to open the show. First few of those, I think, but outside of that, you feel a couple little flutters, and then by the time you're walking to the mic and you hear applause, you're not thinking about it. But this was not happening here. I have 5, 6 quizzes. I ended up telling my professor, I was like, I think I'm a bad test taker. And she goes, do you have test anxiety? And she knew the phrase, obviously. And I was like, you know what? I'm just learning about this being an actual problem, but yeah, I think I do. And she goes, well, maybe there's something we can do about it, or you can do about it. And then she sort of left it at that. And I was like, well, I think I just need to get more comfortable with taking exams. And fortunately, my other classes didn't have little mini exams like that, so I was able to just take a bunch in Arabic. And by the time my midterm in the early American history class showed up, and I was way more comfortable with that material because I just know my way around history more than modern standard Arabic. So I wasn't really nervous during that. Leading up to it, I was, because I thought, well, what if the same thing happens? What if I show up in this class thinking, oh, I got this, and I look down and I'm like, I forget how to use a pen, or something super basic. But I got through that because it was, there were some questions you answer and then you write an essay at the end, and I did well. But that whole semester, the whole year, still now, I still have it. I was taking cognitive science this last semester in my second year, and same feeling. Contemporary civilizations, I had a little bit of it. Am I going to remember these ID tags for the 15 different philosophy books that we read? And I don't know if it goes away or not, or if it just kind of disappears and reappears in the same way it does with stand-up. But it was a new feeling that made me feel really I don't know if immature is the right word, but it just made me remember there are still things that'll just put you outside of your like adult comfort zone and just make you like put you at this on the same level as these, you know, teenagers where you're just like, you know, although some of them are just, they don't even think about it. They're just like, they're finishing quizzes like lightning fast and, you know, getting A's on everything. And then freaking out when they get like an A- or, you know, B+ or something. But, yeah, man, that test anxiety is real. So, another thing that happened in the first semester, fall of 23, was in October, the Gaza protests started. So after October 7th, I think that's just what they're calling it now. Just October 7th is the official name of the attack. So there were protests. This is obviously old news now. The protests at Columbia, but that's where a lot of the college protests, like I think they started at Columbia and they spread to other campuses and, you know, the streets and everything. But they were happening there, and the media really made them, on average, seem like they were much more all-consuming than they were. There were definitely days and definitely moments and definitely events that were got pretty big. But by and large, I forgot they were going on for most of the semester, because if you are not passing through the main campus, where on the lawns in front of the library, you're not seeing it really, you're not hearing it. There were some at the entrances, but I think a part of it was a lot of my classes weren't going through there. They weren't later in the afternoon, where there were a lot of evening protests. I didn't see any of those. And so the timing of my classes was one aspect of it, but the other was I have been through and been a part of so many protests of various kinds. And again, 20 something years ago when I was in community college, there were protests on campus. They were for the Iraq War and Afghanistan, and I was there for those. And I just don't think those things faze me like they understandably would for a freshman in college who had probably just moved to New York, has never been in a big city, is living away from home, and there are these very serious protests for a very real cause, and they are freaking everybody out, and they're closing entrances and exits, and there's implementing new protocols, and there's like racial divisions, and people are yelling, you know, slurs and vague threats or explicit threats and everything in between. It was really nerve-wracking for a lot of these students, and I really felt for them because they were visibly shaken and just didn't know what to do. And, you know, there were a couple moments, I think, where I tried to say something kind of helpful or supportive, and I remember, I think it was in the Arabic class, but I remember saying, like, you know, it would be helpful if you left campus, you know, and if you live on or near campus, like, just go 30 blocks south of school. You know, Columbia's on 116th and Broadway in the upper west side, beginning of Harlem. But go 30, 40, 60 block, go to the West Village, go walk around, and you will quickly remember that the world's still moving. Things are not as intense as they are just on this campus, which again, understandably, is your life right now. But and it's not to say forget about it or ignore it or don't participate, but pace these things out so you're able to catch a breath and remember that this isn't the only thing going on, and, you know, your world isn't gonna collapse overnight because there are a lot of students protesting and emotions are sky high. But they changed the way they were doing things as the semester went on, in terms of giving people more time, more room to get things done, or some classes were on Zoom later at the very end of the semester. And that again, what made me remember like the stark differences between being a 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old going to a university like this in a city like New York, and probably having this be the first major life event on multiple levels, and then getting hit with these protests that were, I think, probably pretty much daily. So yeah, that was something that I had to remember to be more empathetic about, in terms of how serious and real it was. So I don't know. They ended over the winter break, I remember that first year, and then the second, and in the spring they picked back up, and they went through the whole year, and it was really trying on a lot of students. It was like exhausting, like on an emotional and intellectual level, and sometimes physical, because a lot of the students were getting involved in the protests and demonstrations and putting all their energy behind them. And overall, I felt really, really inspired by it, because you look around in your adult life and, most people aren't involved in causes like to that degree. They'll probably, write a check to an organization. There's a big natural disaster, you send some money that way, or you donate a couple of things, and then you go about your life. And most people are very interested in the things that they're doing, and it sort of ends there for a lot of people, at least from what you can see. But these students were taking this so seriously, and some people, granted, were from Israel and or Palestine and had immediate relatives, and so there was a lot of like serious, like close connection there for some people. But for a lot of these other students, it's these are the ages where you're idealistic, and you're developing and reaffirming and challenging your beliefs, and really figuring out what is important to you, and learning how to live in the world. That's a big part of this college experience. And it was really inspiring to just be around that and watch people give it their all for something that is very real, not like in my regular life, everyone's giving their all for their own personal, self-interest, and advancing their career and making more money and doing something that just doesn't fully ultimately matter. But seeing all these students do this, and was just, it just brought back a lot of like hope for the future, and just the next generation, and politics in America, and politics in the world, and people really seeing and understanding things, and finding the truth, and challenging information that's in front of them, and wanting to come together and work together and understand the other side, and speak for those who can't speak for themselves. There were moments where I sat and looked outside the window of the library and just let it fill me with like energy and just inspiration for everything beyond what was happening on that campus, just in the world. So, and that's not something I've felt in a long time. That was a really, really like important moment, I'm sure, for all those students, because it really affected me. And I imagine it really was pivotal for their college career, because a lot of the students were just starting out, and it was something that they probably felt like, I can't not be involved in this. How will I be able to live with myself, like that kind of thing. So, yeah, but I don't want to really get into more like specifics and details and stuff. because anything I said was just in the news and things that were public, but yeah, ultimately really really inspiring. Like, it's cool to be a part of at least on the sidelines, what like the generation coming up is doing to shape the world. So anyhow, let's end it there, huh? Let's end it there. So maybe the next one of these, I'm going to talk about something more upbeat and just sort of like back to school related. I want to talk about school supplies, because I really love stationery stuff and pens and papers, and obviously I use all that in my work, but it's been an excuse to get more and play with some new stuff. So it's going to be stationery nerd out next episode. All right.